I'm going to try to say something which might have been said before, but might not have been said the way it has been said. Something that might not have been said, and I will say it. Something which might be different than the way it's been interpreted, but it will be the views based on my experience, mostly globally, regionally. But what I'm going to say, I believe, has some relevance to Nepal. Where it is not relevant, there are a lot of experts here who will be able to say this is not relevant. So with that background, I just want to ask myself, in fact, I ask myself 3 questions. First, where is Nepal today in terms of being carbon neutral economy? And then I also added what roadmap we may need, what institutional architecture we may need if we want to get there. Second question to me is what Nepal needs to do. Based on my experience that I've seen in the Asia-Pacific region and globally, I may not be as knowledgeable as some of you, but I want to tell you what I think would be right things to do if we want to do. We may have a desire not to do, that's a different matter. The third, what are the top priority actions? Of course, you need to do everything, but what are the top priority actions we will need to take, we should take to meet carbon neutral economy and the commitment? Now, just to set the context, I'm not going to say much on this, it's been said many times in this conference. There is, based on the scientific studies, there is a global understanding that about half of today's emissions, about half, about 45%, has to be reduced by 2030 globally. If we want to follow the 1.5 degree warming, we need to reduce about 50% and become carbon neutral by 2050. This is science. This is on the IPCC report, special report on 1.5 degrees centigrade. This is given. Now, globally, what are the countries globally doing this? Many have committed, okay, we'll do that by 2050. They will do the net zero emissions by mid-century. Some have even said we will do it before that. And I will tell you why some countries would want to do it before. And what are some of the pillars, top areas they are focusing in order to meet their net emission by 2050? What are they doing? The pillars, the key focus they're doing is decarbonizing the energy sector, most important, globally. Industry, decarbonizing the industries. It may not be as relevant to us, but globally, very relevant. Decarbonizing the transport sector. Looking at the agriculture sector, we'll hear later from Yogendraji on this. Enhancing carbon sink. We talked a lot today about carbon sink. We are 45% of the country is forest. But how good is that forest in terms of the sink? We don't know. Whether all of them are that good, but if you compare the volume, the area of the coverage of Nepal, it's very small. 45% globally is very, very small. Compared to Indonesia, Brazil, it's very small, but still very useful to keep in mind that it is our forest and we want to make the most use of it. Now, Nepal, it's been said so many times, Nepal has made a commitment to net zero target by 2045. I mean, this is a motherhood statement by now. Yesterday, I heard someone making a comment. When China says it will meet its net zero commitment by 2060, and India 2070, why we have to commit to 2045? In my opinion, this thinking process is wrong. We have to think, when can we do it? When will it be possible? If we do it, what will be beneficial to the country? And just to compare, say that India does 2070, 60 is not a valid way of thinking. We need to think, when can we do it? Why we should do it? What is beneficial to it? So that question yesterday, I personally think it was out of line, at least out of line in my way of thinking. Of course, if you want to do carbon neutral, you've got to look at everything. Every sector is important, small or big. You need to go carbon friendly and decarbonize. But there are always some key sectors which will have maximum impact. And I would like to mention to you 5 such sectors which I think are very relevant for Nepal, where if we miss that, we will not get there. If we did that, we'll get the maximum benefit out of it in terms of getting our target done. The first, we call AFOLU, you know this language in the UNFCCC term, agriculture, forestry, and other land use. This contributes, in my opinion, close to, you may correct me the data, 70–80% of the greenhouse emission is mainly from this in Nepal. Almost 70–80%. You can correct me later with your facts. Agriculture. We talk a lot about forestry in this meeting. We didn't talk about agriculture. Very important. Emission from agriculture is livestock, etc., included, probably more than 50%. You're getting it, right? Based on my old data. We need to focus that. We have, because Nepal, the non-CO2 gases constitute almost 70% emissions. Non-CO2. So this is very missing discussions so far. I think Yogendraji will address that. The second sector, which has been talked a lot, is the energy sector. We talk about hydro, no question. Hydro is very, very important. But let's not forget, almost 60%, close to that. We don't have Navraji to correct the right number. The biomass use in this country is very high, almost 60%. 51% of the households still are cooking in firewood. So therefore, to say that we are hydro, and yes, we need hydro, to electrifying the whole country by hydro will take a long, long time. Long time. I mean, the speed and the action is just inadequate. The third sector, which is very important, is the transport and the urban sector. The transport emissions has been talked about a lot. We want to go to the EVs, electrifying the buses, etc. Yes, I think based on what I know, what I have read, what I have seen, the studies, EV is a possible transition, energy transition for Nepal, especially in the cities. We should also start thinking about connecting wider distances even with electric connection sector, and promoting the clean fuel is very, very important. In the urban sector, many countries, some 200, 300, 400 cities, I don't have the exact number now, are going carbon neutral. I think this is something the mayors need to think about it. Can I go carbon neutral? It's happening as we talk in many, many countries. The fourth sector is the industrial sector. We have cement, we have iron, and others. We have even brick kilns. They all need to be told that you someday need to be thinking about being carbon neutral, or try to find ways to offset your emission, or based on the discussion, just the session before this, what would happen if there's a global price on carbon? How would you survive? You need to start looking at those shadow prices now. I think we discussed that in the last sessions a lot. We also talk about the SMEs. There was a comment from the private sector. It's very difficult. We don't have the awareness in the last sessions. In the SMEs, out of the SMEs is small. But what I have seen in the countries that I have worked, in big countries like China, etc., this is where you can reduce the lot. Unlike what was said in the last session, this is where there is very difficult. If there is why SMEs have the biggest opportunities by switching, by changing their technologies, you can get lots of carbon CO2, clean environment, product quality gets better, and you become exportable. I have done firsthand this kind of experience myself in China, where the role of the government was to make sure those SMEs became environmentally friendly, climate friendly, produce better quality, but those SMEs didn't have money. So therefore, the role of the government became very important. A multilateral agency like mine, ADB, World Bank, provided softer, cheaper money for that kind of purpose. I'm not selling the loans anymore because I don't work anymore. I'm retired, but this is how it was done. The fifth sector is the waste management. The solid waste methane. Methane, as you know, is almost more than 20 times more harmful than the CO2. And you also get more money if you can sell. You can actually reduce methane. So the methane, solid waste management, and the industrial waste management is a very important sector, especially because, look at the cities. I was looking, if my memory is correct, the Kathmandu Valley produces almost 1/3 of the GDP, a little bit more. 1/3 of the GDP. So 1/3 of the country's money is made here, the employment is made here. Therefore, the important to look at the urban waste to energy and those options, which I think we haven't done that yet. The other buzzword that I like to put in, which has not been mentioned in this seminar yet, is importance of circular economy. Looking at from the beginning to the end. We talk about 3R, reduce, reuse, recycle. We talk about SCP, sustainable consumption and production. But the whole thing is piece of what we like to call a circular economy. I think the principle of circular economy is needed, in my opinion, in this country, like we have done in many other countries. So what can we do about it? What can we do? Having said this, I'm going to make some quick policy suggestions. It's been made before maybe, but I'm going to say this based on my own personal experience. What policy would be extremely useful to become a carbon neutral country or economy by 2040 or even 2050? One thing you definitely need is a policy on accelerating renewable energy transition. Although we say we're a hydro country, we have nothing to do it, no. We could phase out from the fossil fuel. We could think someday of LPG cooking replacement by energy cooking. That will be a big leap forward. It also means we don't have to import, which we don't have. We also have the possibility of using lots of biogas. I mean, what we have done some. It's not that we haven't done. The scale at which the biogas could be promoted in this country until the time we become fully electrified is huge. We haven't tapped that. And this is where you can also get the carbon credits and carbon price sector. I think we are very hydrocentric, which is good, which is important. In my opinion, we need to do more on solar. The current policies, whether you call fit-in tariff, subsidy, it is not attractive for the private sector to invest. Whereas this is a sector globally where private sector is happy to invest because the returns are good. And if this needs a feed-in tariff arrangement, a policy change, viability gap, whatever it is, I personally believe you should do it. Madhuji mentioned 1% tax on the gasoline. He said he doesn't know where that money goes. I would put this money here. And I'm very familiar with coming from a multilateral bank perspective. Whatever tax we get, it goes to the kitty and then you start distributing. But we have also done. I do remember projects in many countries where we created a road fund, including in this country. We have a road fund, so that there will be money for maintenance. Similarly, we can have a money which we collect maybe out of the gasoline to put in the solar. I think, please, this will make energy available much, much sooner throughout the whole country than the hydro can do it. In 6 months, you can do so much more than what hydro can do in 5 years. And make sure this will be attractive to the private sector to do it. They will do it, because we have enough evidence in the region. The second, I said about the decarbonize transport sector and promote carbon neutrality path. This is possible. It means promoting electric vehicles. Nepal has a very good track record of EV penetration. But we have a very poor policy on what to do with the tax, sometime up, sometime down, whether we give subsidy or not, how much infrastructure to build for charging, etc. So we just do not have a clear picture on that. I think we also need to start thinking about the whole, someday think of a timeline based on a study when we can actually get rid of the fossil fuel vehicles, especially in the urban areas. Because India plans to do that by 2030, I think, 30 or 35. They want to have 30% of their vehicles will be EVs. So if I were to make a policy, my cars are mostly going to come from India, whether it is a Japanese car or Korean car, they are made there mostly. So I would take a policy that I will be more EV, all EV residential or personal vehicles by 2030, 2035. But I will do a small study, whether it's 35 or 30 or 40 or 5. Next area policy is energy efficiency. It didn't come out very well in this conference. Yesterday and today, nobody talked about the importance of energy efficiency. Huge opportunity. Nobody knows about it. Huge opportunity. And let me tell you simple things. When I go buy a TV like that, I only think about 48-inch price so much, 36-inch price so much. But if you compare 38 inches and 48 inches and look at the energy consumption at the back, you may be paying more for a 48 inches than 36 inches. Refrigerators. There is no reason why Nepal should take a less energy efficient refrigerator or a washing machine, on and on. And the end use energy opportunity huge. We haven't taken to that. This is really quick money making. We also could do a lot on the building codes. If I had to approve a building like this, I used to work in the building and housing ministry once, 55 years ago, maybe. Today, if I were to do it, I would put up a code and say, please try to reduce as much as possible, be energy efficient, try to make it green building as much as possible. I'll make that as a requirement. Many countries are doing that already. Fourth, which Yogendraji will talk a lot, sustainable agriculture, forest, and land use. I think it's been discussed this morning. We don't have sustainable forestry thinking at all. You go to Canada, Scandinavian country, they have a 100-year cycle. They cut trees, they make pulp, they make furniture, they add to the GDP. They also protect a lot. I think something is wrong in our system that if it's a tree, you can't touch. I think the thinking on this has to completely change. I personally believe we don't probably have a sustainable forestry management strategy at all. And agriculture, of course, we need to think about implementing climate-smart agriculture practice. I'm not going to talk much about it. I guess you'll talk more about it later. Having said this, the next one to me is, I repeat again, promote circular economy. Many countries adopted, China, India, many countries have accepted, move away from reduce, reuse, recycle to even in industry and in the urban areas to circular economy. Carbon pricing was talked in the last session. I'm a strong believer we should start looking at now in the context of this industrial decarbonization. Now, I will leave it here first. Then I want to talk about what are some of our challenges. These are some of the policies and the actions that we are supposed to take. What are our challenges? I'll mention about 5 only. 1, everybody, in every session, they talk about finance, financial constraint. And what we heard here is correct. What we have, we're not able to spend it wisely. I'm from ADB. Madhuji knows our disbursement rate is not even 25 sometimes, 25%. So you have money you can spend. That's one scenario, which is not a good scenario. And if you can't spend, nobody gives you more. Second scenario is, we also do not have mechanism to get all those available goodies, bilateral, multilateral, etc., because our system is not strong enough. I could look at this from when I was the ADB, that we know where to go and tap this money, but then we should have ideas, program, project, where to spend on. If I say today, okay, I give you $2 billion, are we ready to, anybody ready to tell me, this is how we spend $2 billion? We don't have that. So therefore, we must have a very strong team, group, ideally in the Ministry of Finance, they know where the monies are, and bring all the sector people and identify those projects we would like to do for the sake of the country, for carbon neutrality, for the benefit of the people, if we had money. That kind of exercise is lacking. We also say there's not enough money. Now, let me give you my own past experience of ADB. ADB said, when I was there and the climate in charge, we did about $3 billion a year. By the time I left there, it was 5. Today they have made a commitment that we will invest, we meaning they, now they, no longer me, will invest $30 billion on climate by 2030. There's plenty of money. It's not just for the additional GCF money, it's for projects like energy, transport, urban, smart agriculture, etc., etc. So the same sectors, if you can turn that into a climate-friendly project, there is plenty of money. And therefore, one of the things we need to do is tell every ministry, every sector to make your project carbon-friendly, and there's money. So that is the financial part. But of course, if we need to raise money, we can raise money. We can introduce a carbon tax, which to some extent, carbon pricing. We can go for blended financing. We can even throw a green bond. If I think I'm looking at Soban, you wrote an article on this green bond. It's all possible. But the mindset that we need is, if I had this more money, where I would put it. That's not very clear. But we need to be clear. Someone said we need an investment plan this morning. The second challenge we have, which has been said many times also, and I'll say it again, is the technological and capacity limitation. Many of the technology we use, we shouldn't be using at all. Because the mindset that we require in the technology space is adopt, adapt, or leapfrog. Adopt meaning something is so good, I'm so behind, just take it. Forget it, throw the old ones. It's just like, this is no good, throw it. No point trying to play with those inefficient technologies. If it is something so good there, I want to bring it, but it doesn't fit me to my local, adapt it. Adjust it, adapt it. But if it is so bad, our situation is so bad, people are moving to the AI space, etc., it's no use trying to play around with my technology. They throw it and get leapfrog it. That's the mindset and the policy that I think will be required. A simple example I can give you, look at the traffic light. I don't believe in the 21st century, I pity those policemen who really manage the traffic, inhaling those air pollutions, etc. I don't believe they can manage better than a computerized AI screen which will tell you there are 100 cars this way, 20 this way. It will manage which should move fast. It will be energy efficient, less traffic, productivity gains. 2 to 3% GDP gain has been produced in many cities in the world. If this, you can't even put that technology, you don't need to think twice. It should have been done, it could be done, and leapfrog it. Don't try to play around, add few more like that. Capacity building, again, has been said, we don't have capacity. My conclusion on this is my thesis on this is there are lots of capable people in Nepal, individually, institutionally weak. I may be wrong on this, I could be correct. Institutionally weak, individually excellent. So how do you put that? That means it's the role of the government has to say, how do I create these retired secretaries, Madhu, etc., to work even harder after they leave, if they have the knowledge, which happens all the time in many countries. It doesn't happen here. So there are models that I could talk the whole day, how Korea does it, how Japan does it, how China does it, but that's not for today. And that takes me now to the energy sector transition, once again to mention that we do have regulatory constraints, capacity constraints, thinking constraints, and that, in my opinion, needs to be done. And the last point that challenge for us is, which has been said yesterday by former Chief Justice, also said the research and development, R&D. There's no research. I mean, if you don't have research, how can you really make judgment? Gut feeling, climate, energy sector is the area you can work with gut feeling on technologies. You can be thinking what will happen to my glacier. You know, if you want to save glacier, create a glacier research center to get the global scientists to work on it. By God, somebody will fund this. I have a feeling. Everybody is interested in this. Create one. If we don't know anything about the carbon pricing that we say, create a group research. Say, okay, what do we need to do? Promote the R&D. I look at the R&D budget in my last presentation, very low, one of the lowest, 0.10% of the GDP. Most developed countries will put 3 to 5%. We need at least 1 to 2% of the GDP put in research, and give this research, create research cells, not all in the government, create in universities, think tanks, etc. Let them do the research with government wants it or useful to the country, as well as some independent research. I think that is, in my opinion, a constraint. Now, finally concluding, I just put myself a question to myself. If I had to make top 5 transformational actions for Nepal carbon neutrality by 2040, what would I do? And therefore, what I do doesn't necessarily be very pleasant, maybe agreeable to you, but this is what I think I would do. 1, I will diversify renewables beyond hydropower. I said that before. I would go for a very big solar program, renewable energies, solar, wind, biogas, in a massive way. This will be faster than trying to meet the energy by hydro. It doesn't mean that we don't need hydro, we do. But this will be much, much faster. The power of a renewable energy revolution has not been exploited in this country. We just don't need to go too far. Go to China, go to India. These guys have done amazing things in this one. They can do it. It's not difficult. It's not rocket science. Private sector can do that. Make it favorable for them to be able to do that. Decarbonize transport sector. I would do it. I would phase out fossil fuel vehicle by, I don't know what date. I will do the study. To me, it will be around 2035 because India said they're going to not produce after a certain date. So that's very simple. Or I'll do some studies, say by 2035, 40 is feasible, finish. Fossil fuel personal vehicles out in this country because we don't manufacture. I don't lose. I don't know, and I'm not a combustion engine manufacturer, so I don't need to worry about it. It's not going to affect me. It will help us with the importing of the oil and balance of payment, etc., etc. I would even ban, therefore, or if not ban, put a timetable to terminate fossil fuel vehicle by a certain date. Whatever that day we can study, 35, 40, 45, if it's the 45 charge. I will stabilize EV tax policies to avoid market confusion. By gosh, in the last couple of times, I've seen a lot of confusion up and down in the EVs. EVs across the border, EVs sitting inside the country. I mean, this is ridiculous. Nowhere it happens. It shouldn't happen here. We are smart people. It shouldn't. Put a EV tax, say this is what it is for the until 2045, and it will not be changed. The private sector will react. And they know they're smart, they will do it. Which means that electrify all transport by 2035, 2040, 45. I would do 35 based on my judgment, but I need to do a little study whether it'll be 40 or 45. But I will do it. Electrify all transport, including the buses. Third, I will ask mayors, my mayor from the Lalitpur is not here today, but to start thinking about building carbon neutral positive cities. I'm advisor to Yokohama City Mayor, and they have said, okay, we will be a carbon neutral city by 2050. It's doable in Japan. There are 200 plus cities that are already signed. Achille Babaji has been there in Yokohama many times. He knows about it. And I think if we make a policy and encourage them, say by 2045, I will have 5, 6 cities, pilot cities are carbon neutral. It's a doable goal, and I would do it. I would also mandate net zero buildings. Many buildings are in the city. Not every building possible. New buildings, many big buildings, net zero. If they can be net zero, they will put renewable, they will buy BRs, CRs, etc., try to be net zero. Many companies globally are net, even Apple, Microsoft are net zero. They buy renewable somewhere, they forest sink somewhere, and so on and so forth. And why not? Fourth, slash agriculture methane. This is Yogendra's area. I would cut down to 50%. It's doable. My estimate. These are all my thumb rule calculations based on my old experience. But we will need to do the study. Whether it's 40 or 50, 60, it's a matter of detail. I think we can do that, 50%. And I would, the biogas is a very big success story here. Many people have got the carbon credit for this. I would make 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 in a massive scale biogases until the time we're able to electrify them. This is a doable job. And it will make money, it will give you carbon credit as well. And the forest side, I would again repeat, we will need to strengthen the forest conservation definitely, and make sure those conservation area which needs to be protected are not affected by the climate change. If affected, we need to think about the adaptation measures. But in addition to that, the sustainable forest management, to be able to use forests for productive use without affecting the environmental concerns, should be improved, in my opinion. And of course, we need to mobilize resources. I've talked about mobilizing resources many ways. I won't say, but the critical to all of these, then I started saying, if I needed to be able, can I do this under the current arrangement? The institutional and the governance architecture, my gut feeling says no. No. Then what I would suggest is the following. I think the current institutional and enforcement structure is inadequate, insufficient to address these big issues. Of course, we do have the Environment Protection Act, which was mentioned, Climate Change Policy Act, sector policies. But I would do something like what Singapore has done, which is establish a national climate authority. It's under the Prime Minister. Of course, there's only a council here, with no powerful. It is a very powerful, very pragmatic council. I like the Singapore Climate Action Secretariat called NCSS, which was established under the Prime Minister. It's a strategy, it makes strategy to say, and tells the cabinet and the line agency, energy, water, transport sector, this is what you will do it. And they will prepare, if I've got a roadmap for 2045 for carbon neutrality, the agriculture department will prepare, how do I become carbon neutral in my sector, in the carbon sector? How would I respond to that? We don't have that. We need it. So that kind of thing. Also, if we want to be globally active, today I heard we have a desire to be globally engaging in the dialogue, etc. Many countries have even appointed special representative, special envoy, including China. There was a friend of mine, Mr. Shea. He used to be the China envoy. We have Senator Kerry used to be, and there are many other. Well, why not? I think if you want to take this a serious agenda, we want to be having dialogue globally and enhancing our negotiation, we can create a special envoy. I think Shankarji also said this. If I heard it right, I fully support him on this one. So in short, these are all, in my opinion, doable. This would need a very big commitment at the political level, at all levels. Of course, if we don't want to do it, we'll not do it. and we will not be carbon neutral by 2045. Thank you very much.